Good evening, night dwellers. Welcome to the channel where shadows whisper and eerie tales soothe you to sleep. Let me guide you through tonight's chilling stories. Relax, close your eyes, and let the darkness take you. Sweet dreams. Our first story begins in a place that should have been safe. Everyone knows the Queen Mary is haunted, but there's a big difference between hearing the stories and actually spending the night inside. I didn't book just any room either. I saved up specifically for stateroom B340, the one they kept closed for years because the activity was apparently too much. When I checked in, everything felt surprisingly normal. The room was quiet, smaller than I expected, with that old ship smell of polished wood and something slightly metallic underneath. Before going to bed, I made sure to check everything. The faucet in the bathroom was completely off. The sink was dry, the door was locked, and the hallway outside was empty. Nothing seemed out of place, and I remember thinking it was probably all just hype. I fell asleep pretty quickly, but I woke up suddenly around 3 a.m. At first, I didn't know why, but then I heard water running. Not dripping, running hard. I sat up and listened for a moment before getting out of bed and walking into the bathroom, and that's when I saw it. The faucet was on full blast. I know for a fact I turned it off before going to sleep, but now it was completely open. I shut it off, trying to rationalize it, but that uneasy feeling had already set in. That's when the banging started. It was slow and rhythmic, and it wasn't coming from the hallway. It was coming from inside the walls. It didn't sound like pipes either. It sounded too deliberate, like something knocking from the other side. As I stood there listening, the temperature in the room dropped fast, way faster than anything natural, and the air suddenly felt ice cold. Then I heard the door handle move. At first, it was a light rattle, like someone testing it, but then it got more aggressive, like someone was actually trying to get in. I froze for a second before forcing myself to walk over and look through the peephole. The hallway was completely empty. No footsteps, no shadows, nothing. I opened the door anyway, just to be sure, but there was no one there. The corridor was silent and still, like nothing had happened at all. When I stepped back inside, though, the room felt different, colder, heavier, like something had been there and maybe hadn't left. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night, and I still can't explain what happened. The only thing that really bothers me is this. If no one was in the hallway, then what was trying to get in? If you thought that was unsettling, listen to this. I used to work weekend security at a radiopharmaceutical facility in the Northeast. It wasn't the kind of place you could ever fully relax in. Every shift meant wearing a dosimeter badge, logging radiation levels, and checking temperature-sensitive materials stored in sealed, hot rooms. But the real unease didn't come from the radioactive side of the job. It came from the buildings themselves. The site sprawled across multiple structures, some active, some long abandoned. One of them, a facilities and engineering office, sat right next to what used to be an R&D building. That one had been demolished after reports surfaced about animal testing. No one talked about it much, but the implication hung in the air. The engineering building was still standing, old, 2 stories, same layout on each floor, a long, narrow hallway stretching from one end to the other, with identical doors lining both sides. Even during the day, it felt off. At night, it felt wrong. One evening, I started my usual tour. First floor, quiet, nothing unusual. Just the hum of old lights and the echo of my own footsteps. Then, I headed upstairs. The moment I stepped onto the second floor, I heard it. A scream. Not distant. Not muffled. Right down the hallway. It was loud, sharp, and completely unnatural. Like something trying and failing to sound human. It echoed through the corridor and then cut off abruptly, leaving a silence so heavy it made my ears ring. I froze. There was no one else scheduled on site, no animals, no reason for any sound at all. Adrenaline kicked in. I forced myself forward, checking every single room, opening doors faster than I probably should have. Offices, storage rooms, empty spaces, nothing. No sign of anyone, no explanation, just silence. I finished the round, but I didn't shake that feeling for the rest of the night. A week or so later, I had to check the building again. I remember hesitating at the bottom of the stairs before going up. Something in me already didn't want to be there. Still, I went. As soon as I reached the second floor and looked down the hallway, I saw movement. At the far end, just a flicker. Something darted from one side of the corridor to the other. Too fast to make out clearly. Just a blur. But it was there. That was enough. My hands started sweating instantly. My chest tightened. I didn't try to investigate this time. I turned around and got out. Fast. Back to the guard shack, where the lights and monitors suddenly felt like the safest place in the world. That night, I tried to sleep. I wish I hadn't. I dreamed I was back in that building. Same hallway, same second floor. But this time, I could see clearly. At the end of the corridor stood something. It looked almost like a dog, but wrong. Its body was twisted, elongated, and from its back stretched wings that didn't belong on anything living. It wasn't moving. It wasn't making a sound. It was just staring at me. No emotion, no curiosity, just watching. I woke up suddenly, heart pounding, completely frozen in bed. For a few seconds, I couldn't even move. The image stayed with me, too detailed, too vivid to brush off as a normal dream. Even now, thinking about it gives me chills. I don't know what I heard. I don't know what I saw. And I definitely don't know why my mind filled in the rest the way it did. But I do know this. I didn't stay at that job much longer after that. Another story from a different place, but just as unsettling. I used to think it was just one of those strange old superstitions people repeat without ever questioning, the kind that gets passed down quietly, like a habit no one remembers starting. My gran had one rule she never joked about: never leave a mirror facing an open window after dark. She didn't explain it often, but when she did, she'd call it a trap. Not for you, but for something else. Or maybe from something else. I always brushed it off as nonsense. Old world thinking. The kind of thing that doesn't survive outside of stories. I didn't think about it again for years. Not until I came across Sophie. She was a student, early 20s, who disappeared during a trip to a remote mountain area. The case never really got much attention, but the details that did surface were off. The room she was staying in was found undisturbed. No signs of forced entry. No indication she'd packed up or left voluntarily. Just her belongings, exactly where they should have been, except for one thing: the mirror. It had been positioned directly across from an open window. At first, that wouldn't mean anything, just coincidence. But then there were the marks, deep, frantic scratches on the inside of the glass. Not on the surface you'd expect, not something someone could casually leave behind. These looked like they came from within the mirror itself, as if something had been trying to claw its way out, or keep something from going in. And then there were the witnesses. People staying nearby claimed they saw Sophie shortly before she vanished, said she had been standing in front of that mirror, completely still. Except her reflection wasn't. They described it like it lagged behind her movements at first, just slightly off, like a glitch you almost miss. Then it stopped matching her entirely. One person swore they saw her reflection pressing against the inside of the glass, like it was trapped, while Sophie herself stood frozen on the other side. Another said it looked like she was fighting something, struggling, panicking, but only in the reflection. The real Sophie, barely moving. Then, sometime during the night, she was just gone. No broken glass, no open doors, no footprints leading away. Just an empty room, an open window, and a mirror no one wanted to touch. I keep thinking about what my gran said, about traps, and lately, I've started noticing things I used to ignore, like how different a room feels at night when a mirror catches the dark outside. How it doesn't just reflect the window. It almost feels like it connects to it, like it opens something. I still don't know if I believe any of it, but I'll say this. I don't leave mirrors facing open windows anymore, just in case. We'll end with a story that still doesn't have an explanation. The house I live in was built sometime in the 1980s. Before my family ever moved in, it belonged to an elderly woman who lived there alone until she passed away from old age. At least, that's the version everyone tells. By the time I was born, my family had already learned there was more to the story. When they first moved in, things didn't happen all at once. It started quietly, subtle, almost easy to dismiss. Then the dreams began. Not just one person, everyone. My sister dreamed about her first. She said the woman stood in front of her screaming, but there was no sound, just a wide open mouth and this unnatural silence. And her hair. It didn't move like normal hair. It kept slipping in and out of her head, like it didn't belong to her. Then my dad had one, and my dad is the last person you'd expect to say something like this. He doesn't believe in ghosts, never has. But he told us he fell asleep on the couch one night and woke, or thought he woke, to see her hovering above him, not standing, not leaning, floating, screaming at him to get out of her house. Then there was my mom. She didn't see anything, not at first, but one day she sat down on her bed and just felt it, that unmistakable awareness that someone else was in the room with her, watching, waiting, and instead of panicking, she spoke, calm, direct. She told the woman, "This is our home. We worked for it. We built our life here. I'm sorry for what happened to you. But you have to understand, you don't live here anymore." After that, things changed. Not gone, but quieter. There were still moments. Chairs shifting slightly when no one was near them. The stove clicking on by itself. The sink running when no one had touched it. Enough to remind you, but not enough to overwhelm you. Then I was born, and everything stopped. Completely. No dreams, no movement, nothing. Over time, my family started to notice a pattern. Whenever there were kids or babies in the house, whatever was there stayed still. My mom once told me she saw the woman standing next to my crib when I was an infant. Not angry, not violent, just watching me, almost peacefully, like she was happy I was there. Years passed. Life moved on. Things felt normal until 2019. My sister went through a divorce and ended up living alone in a large house. My dad didn't like the idea of her being by herself, so he asked me to move in with her for a while. I did. And for a few years, nothing followed me. No strange dreams, no sounds. It felt like whatever was in that house had been left behind. Then, in 2023, my dad passed away. Everything shifted after that. We couldn't leave our mom alone, so we sold the house and moved back in with her. The same house. The moment we came back, it was like picking up a conversation that had never really ended. The lights started flickering again. Subtle at first, then more deliberate. The dreams came back too. Clearer, more frequent. One night, all of us were talking about it in the same room, trying to make sense of everything. That's when the power went out. Then, back on. Then, off again. And in the silence between, you could hear it. The breaker. Clicking. Like someone was standing there, flipping it by hand. Another night, I was sitting at the kitchen table, fixing my mom's laptop. All three of my cats were nearby, just watching me. Then, I heard it. Soft at first, almost like humming. Coming from under the house. Not pipes, not wind. Singing. Slow, low, human. Every one of my cats froze. And then, all at once, their heads turned in the exact same direction, toward the sound. That's when the fear really hit. Another time, I walked into my room late at night. My fiancé was asleep, everything quiet. The second I stepped inside, something moved. A black shape, fast, solid, ran straight through the wall, like it had somewhere to be. It knocked over the trash can as it passed. I didn't think. I just ran. One of my cats bolted with me, and we didn't stop until we were back in the living room with the lights on. And the worst part? It doesn't feel hostile all the time. Sometimes it just feels present, like it never left, like it's been waiting. There are more things that have happened, more than I can fit here. But even writing this much feels like enough. Because once you start talking about it, it's like it starts listening again. I worked in a haunted restaurant for about 18 months back in 2011, although I didn't realize it at first. It wasn't until about 6 months in, when some of the chefs casually mentioned it, that everything I'd been experiencing started to make sense. Looking back, the timing was strange. There were frequent, intense experiences during those first few months, then almost nothing for nearly a year, and then a sudden spike again right before I left. I worked as a kitchen hand, usually starting around 6 p.m. and finishing sometime between 1 and 2 in the morning. For the last few hours of most shifts, it was just me and the maitre d' left in the building. He would usually be down in the basement, while I stayed on the second floor, where the kitchen and the main dining room were. It was a private members restaurant, so once service ended, the place would go completely quiet. The building itself dated back to 1864. It had 3 stories, a tower, a stone basement, and even a deeper underground level that held offices, staff rooms, and a wine cellar that doubled as a dining area. Out of all those levels, I had experiences on 3 of them, and I wasn't the only one. Almost every employee, along with some maintenance workers, had their own stories. Most people stayed but a few ended up quitting because of it. Later on, I learned more about the building's history. It was originally Naldham House, built for the Australian United Steam Navigation Company. The name itself comes from MacDonald and Hamilton. There was at least one recorded incident involving a drowning, or possibly even a murder, which people believe is connected to one of the spirits. Staff used to talk about a red-haired ghost named Claire, but there were supposedly at least 2 other distinct presences in the building. Some people even believed the cutlery ghost, which had a habit of moving utensils around, was something entirely separate. By the time I heard all of this, it didn't feel like a story anymore. It just felt like an explanation for things I'd already seen and heard for myself.